Connotation points here with another installment of Radish apps torn between alphas. At the first video, go watch the others, links are posted below. I think I mentioned in another video that the app crashed 3 times before it would start. Today, it started up but then froze on the story start screen, which is always super encouraging. Chapter 16. We left off with Kelly coming face to face with the giant wolf, she kept saying. However, thanks to Lola and Xavier constantly gaslighting her, she's now under the impression that the thing isn't actually real and that she is losing her mind. However, she's quick to change her opinion when Xavier knocks her down and then yells at her over just standing by the wolf without doing anything. He also thinks that she's being stupid for going on about how big the wolf is. Honey, I promise you that wolves are a lot bigger than standard dogs. Except with his attitude, Kelly is now under the impression that Xavier is the one who is breeding these giant things and that he's going to kill her for having uncovered his secret. She goes back to the house where she quickly finds Lola. She insists that they need to leave because bad things are happening. And yes, bad things are happening, but as usual, I'm more hung up over how these guys paid that much money for happy fun times and are keeping Callie and Lola prisoner and their generally toxic behavior. A random wolf running around is barely on the radar at this point. Kelly is hysterical, especially in Lola's continued nonchalance over the entire thing. Kelly then drags Lola upstairs where they go into the first room that they come across. Kelly commands that Lola block the door while she looks for another way out. And then, because this is what happens when you emotionally torture people, yes, emotionally torture, Kelly threatens to jump out the window, because in her mind, it seems better than literally anything else that's been going on in her life recently. Ah yes, the greatest romance of all time is a story in which a young woman is driven insane to the point where she would rather kill herself than to be stuck in a house with a young man for a second longer. The peak of romance. Yes, I'm being sarcastic. Xavier and Lola are yelling and Xavier is trying to grab her, but at this point Kelly doesn't have much to live for, so she jumps out the window. But she lands in a nettle bush, which I guess she's a little allergic to because she starts to develop a rash right away. Upstairs, Lola begins to cry because she literally just watched her friend try to jump out a window. And I get that watching something like that would be upsetting, but I'm finding a hard time believing that Lola could possibly be that upset over it. Not when she'd belittled and dismissed every single thing that Kelly said and wanted to do, to the point where Kelly felt like this was her only option. Lola comes downstairs with the boys, who are obviously concerned. However, I feel like a sprained ankle and some scrapes from falling into the nettles seems like a tiny worry in comparison to Kelly's obviously shattered psyche. She keeps screaming at her friend to run, but not even 2 seconds later, Kelly bursts into tears, hugs Lola, and cries about how much she loves Lola. Lola gets Kelly back into the house, and what a complete 180 from 2 seconds ago. I don't know what's happening, and I am not here for it. Inside, Colton asks what all of that was about. Kelly is still crying and tells him about how Xavier can control the wolf bear. By the time that Lola gets Kelly an ice pack for her ankle, both of the boys have randomly disappeared. At this point, I'm not even blinking over all of these plot holes anymore. Lola randomly insists that a bath is going to instantly fix all of Kelly's worries, despite the fact that her trouble seemed to stem from the terrible situation that they found themselves in, and that Kelly is obviously having a nervous breakdown. But you know what? It lines up with all of Lola's awful behavior up until this point, so I can't even complain about that much. Colton shows up 2 seconds later and starts asking Kelly if she has proof over what she is saying, which would not be the first thing on my mind. Normal and mentally well people do not start screaming about giant wolves and fling themselves out of windows. I say this and then immediately have to remind myself that Colton, Xavier, and Lola are the ones who are emotionally torturing Kelly, so She mentions to both of the boys that she's going to give the money back and go home, but 2 seconds later when Lola announces that the bath is ready, Kelly randomly decides that not only is she going to continue to be there, but she's also going to take off all of her clothes and get into the bath. I can't with these random 180 personality shifts with her anymore. Kelly stays in there for so long that Xavier tells her to get out, and then Kelly randomly freaks out about the idea that Xavier has turned Lola into a wolf and runs out from the bathroom wearing only a towel. Xavier has to stop her because he's afraid that she's going to hurt herself again. Highlighted comments. Also, is anyone else continuing to read because it's simply like watching a train wreck of bad television? You can't look away. And when she was in the woods, she should have been looking for the other half of her brain. The fact that there don't seem to be that many people who even legitimately like this story makes me certain that the random chick commenting about what a great romance that Kelly and Xavier have was nothing more than a troll. Chapter 17. Xavier wants to take Kelly to wherever Lola is, but Kelly is obviously still wearing the towel. She goes to get changed and then he takes her to Lola. Kelly is still hung up over the idea of the wolf bears and is just frustrated that Lola isn't taking her seriously at all. Xavier comes back and says that he wants them to follow him into the woods, and like a complete and utter idiot, Kelly just kind of goes along with it. As she's walking, Xavier grabs Callie, which finally prompts an appropriate negative response from Lola. She seems to think that Xavier is going to hurt her, which is only more frustrating because she wouldn't leave when Callie wanted to, but now that it seems as though Xavier actually will hurt her, well. Xavier eventually releases Callie and then calls over the wolf bear, and he acts like the thing is a pet. However, Xavier orders the thing to get them, and the girls run off in horror. Callie is stopped when she physically runs into Xavier for like the 5th time. Pick a new trope already. Callie has had enough with this nonsense and screams at Xavier that the things that he's doing to them isn't normal. She continues to babble on for a while before Xavier asks if she'll allow him to speak now, under threat of being grabbed by the wolf. But then he continues to not say anything and continues to toy with both Callie and Lola, because, yep, when I'm looking for a man, the first thing I think to myself is he going to emotionally torture me for days before moving on to threats of actual torture? Sarcasm. Finally, after a lot of this, Lola says that she has a question. She asks where Colton is, and Xavier says that he's been there the entire time, which, wow, color me surprised. All the sarcasm. Chapter 18. Both Lola and Kelly seem to think that Xavier is mental, and part of me gets it, mainly because you live in the real world where werewolves are nothing but Team Jacob. The idea of somebody being an actual werewolf is just too absurd to even consider. Furthermore, both brothers have gone out of their way to make Kelly feel like she's losing her mind, or as I like to call it, Chapter 16. The three of them go back and forth for a while. They might as well do the cliche, nuh-uh, because especially when you stop and consider that the emotional maturity of all of these characters seems to be around that age anyway. Finally, Colton changes back, which he honestly should have done several paragraphs earlier, if only to cut out the tedious back and forth. However, Kelly is still stuck on the idea of Xavier being a mad scientist and seems to think that he did this to his brother, and then she faints, because we're reduced to Victorian-era tropes, I guess. Lola wakes Kelly up sometime later. Kelly continues her freaking out over the fact that the brothers are werewolves. She seems to be under the impression that they're going to kill her since she knows such a huge secret, which seems like a fair assumption to make, not gonna lie. However, Lola only just blames Kelly for this mess. She says that if Kelly hadn't stuck her nose where it didn't belong. No mention of the fact that they're only there because of Lola's harebrained get-rich-quick scam, and the fact that Lola didn't seem to care about Kelly's emotional or physical well-being, not before they came out there, and obviously not now. However, Lola seems positive that they're not going to be killed, although she can't really come up with a certain reason why she thinks that. Color me reassured over that. Kelly obviously wants to leave, but Lola's like, listen, they could catch up with this. That's how they keep finding us. Which, I get that, but that still doesn't excuse the fact that the girls are being held prisoner. And then Lola guilts Kelly into staying. She tells Kelly that if she runs off, then the brothers will just come after Kelly's family. Kelly insists that Lola seems worried, but at the same time she also uses the word childish to describe Lola, and I'm calling BS on Lola's behavior because it's like she literally doesn't even care about any of this. Colton comes in to see them at the end of the chapter. Like all of these dumb installments, it ends on a cliffhanger, which is seriously not even all that exciting in the first place. Highlighted comments. I wish the two girls had more substance. Such a great story, but Cal and Lola are just written as such dumb characters. I feel like I'm reading a preteen novel. And these girls are both idiots, and they are dragging this story way too long with nothing happening. It's becoming tedious to read. Chapter 19. This chapter opens with some lovely bit of text. Now, for a normal person, they might think, oh, it's perfect, it's going to be a love story. You're going to fall for the werewolf and have werepuppies. He's probably an alpha, too. So hot. Who cares if he threatens your life and plans to eat you? He's hot. That was only in movies and books. This was no Twilight nonsense. There was no Count Dracula or Edward Cullen about to appear. This was a terrifying, explainable thing that showed up in our lives. One we would either die from or run away and never speak of again. This is honestly so on the nose, and it just makes me laugh, because that's literally what this is. I really hate it when stories are just self-aware enough to admit that something is wrong, but not self-aware enough to actually fix the problem. Having thought this, Callie then grabs a random yet conveniently placed vase and smashes it over Colton's head. And I have to say that in 19 chapters, this is the only original thought that Callie has ever had. However, this doesn't knock Colton out as Callie had intended, but only just makes him mad. She and Lola try to run away, but Colton grabs Callie. Lola smashes something else on top of his head, which gives Callie enough room to escape. But this just makes Colton turn his attention to Lola instead. However, before it can go further, Xavier shows up and calls Colton off. Colton tries to play it off like he'd been joking with the girls, but that they took it the wrong way. Honey, nobody smashes a vase over your head over a bad joke. Thankfully, Callie seems to have had enough of this and insists that Colton has been harassing them since they got to the house. Xavier does take the side of the girls and says that they're under a lot of stress. He doesn't seem to understand that holding people against their will can be exceptionally stressful, and only seems to think that their singular stressor is the fact that they're werewolves. However, he's also had enough with the girls attacking them and doing dumb stuff, and threatens to kill them if they try anything like that again. And once more, he's completely and utterly fails to understand the idea that normal people wouldn't be doing this if they were in a reasonable situation. And then they have this super tedious back and forth about the brothers wanting to let them go, but not promising to chase them and bringing them back. I'm over it. There's only so many different times and different ways that I can go, wow, that's fucked up. And Callie also realizes that there are probably more werewolves out there somewhere that is not just Xavier and Colton. But she also thinks back to a previous encounter with the wolf, and I can't even keep track of all of these wolves that she's seen, not when they're just described as being big wolves. But she seems to be under the impression that the brothers fought the other wolf off just to protect her. And hey, you want to know what would protect the girls even more? Send them home! And, yep, that's this video. See you when I see you.